set? I think we are too. Good evening. It's 7:05 or so. I think that's Vermont time for 7. And I'm Bob Jolly. I'm the curator here at the Athenaeum. Thank you for coming. I'm going to do a very brief coming events review, and I would invite you to visit our gallery. If you came 50 years ago, and then you came 25 years later and it looked the same, the next time you come, it'll look a little different. I'm trying to do some new exhibits, so I would invite you to visit when you're here and see what's new there. I just want to mention a couple of things that are in there. As a teaser, there are some hand-colored photos from Japan. There are several new paintings that have probably been here for 125 years, but they are hanging on the wall. They were in the archives, and they're new to us. There are some letters from Jonathan Arnold, St. Johnsbury's founder, in case you're not clear who that was, from 1790, that era. That's pretty cool. And there's an atlas from 1640, so that's an old thing. So please visit the gallery when you are here, or make a special trip and see some new things. Some upcoming events. There's a PTSD lecture here, which we are co-sponsoring with CCV, on Wednesday, May 29th from 6:30 to 9 p.m. That is free and open to the public. It'll be here on this floor. On Thursday, May 30th from 10 until noon, there will be an AARP fraud forum, Don't Be a Target or a Victim. That should be a very interesting forum. You do have to pre-register, so if that has any interest to you, you have to call the phone number. We have a poster on the first floor which gives you the phone number. So it is open to the public, but you just have to pre-register for that. Our next Arts and Culture lecture will take place on Thursday, June 20th, here. Jeff Gold will be speaking on the painter Asher Durand. And on Wednesday, June 26th, we have the final first Wednesday program, which will be Early Photographs of Native North Americans by Professor Lisa McFarland. That was rescheduled from March, I believe, when she had a conflict and couldn't come here. That should be very interesting. Lots of black and white photographs from the 19th and very early 20th century. I am pleased to introduce Beth Emerson, trustee, who will now introduce our speaker. Here's Beth.
Thank you, Bob, and welcome everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce Diana Mara Henry. I just learned that she's a new resident of Vermont, so welcome to Vermont. She lives up in Newport now. She began her career as a photo editor and reporter for the Harvard Crimson in 1967 to 1969. After college, she was a researcher for NBC News and a general assignment reporter for the Staten Island Advance. Going freelance in 1971, she photographed George McGovern from the New Hampshire primaries to the National Democratic Convention, Bella Abzug, and Elizabeth Holtzman. The most published photographs of her career came as official photographer for the National Commission on International Women's Year to document the first National Women's Conference in Houston, Texas. Other extended reports include Vietnam Veterans, 1970 to 1981, Election Night in Plains, Georgia, 1976, Women Office Workers, 9 to 5, 1979, the Women's Pentagon Action, 1980, One-Room Schools, and School Teachers of Vermont and New York. The title of her talk this evening is A Women's Rights Movement, A Photographic Journey, and I just wanted to read you a short quote from the author, Nancy Unger. And she says that Diana Mara Henry chronicles women's fight against social, political, and economic oppression and for peace, equal rights, and protection of the earth. We come to understand Henry's passion for women's dignity and empowerment. So I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Wow. I'm very honored to be here, and I want to thank you very much, Beth, for the introduction and for having me. And Bob Jolly, who set things up so that hopefully we'll have a program, and Mel Rice, who invited me to come, and Mike from KATV, who's filming this evening, so that's a precious thing too. There is a guest book there, as well as the Athenaeum sign-in sheet, and also a couple of my brochures if you want to take that up afterwards. Despite the title, which is I have redone, this slideshow is done specially for the Athenaeum, so I should probably move on, because that that will probably express better the balancing act between, for people who've seen some of my work, I hope you'll enjoy seeing more of it tonight and won't mind seeing some of it again. And I thought I'd just start with a little explanation. The photographic journey that you'll see tonight began in 1971 when I pushed myself out into doing some volunteer work in photography, and then in 1972 when I photographed Bella Abzug's press conference on the Battery at the tip end of Manhattan. Crouching at her feet, I remember being so excited by the visual and political power of this extraordinary woman that I dropped my camera lens. I went on to photograph all her subsequent campaigns for Congress, Senate, and mayor. Bella became the presiding officer of the President's Commission on the Observance of International Women's Year. That commission, established in 1975 and continuing through March 1978, sponsored meetings in each of the 50 states and 6 territories during 1977. The estimated 150,000 women and men attending these conferences elected 2,000 delegates to the first National Women's Conference, held in Houston, November 18th to 21st, 1977. I'm really excited to see all of you and to think that I'm sharing this evening, we're sharing the evening as people who actually lived through that historic time. And so I hope we'll have time to talk about all of your stories too. I'm wondering, was anyone at Houston? Anyone here? Was anyone a delegate or observer at Houston? Let me just. It was a government-sponsored conference for women, about women, by women, and the official document is called The Spirit of Houston, and it's still available online. So you can buy it used, and you can also look it up and leaf through it at the Hattie Trust library. But it contains the plan of action and the events and people of the movement of the 1977 conference, including the delegates from Vermont. And so I'll leave it open sort of to that page if you want. There actually aren't too many. Maybe I should read them. But Barbara Broadbent, Tina Calabro, Sister Elizabeth Candon, Thayer Edwards, Rita Edwards, Karen Kent, Carol Marcy, Dr. Lenore McNear, Joyce Slayton Mitchell, Phoebe Morse, Julie Peterson, Liz Yates. On alternates were Judy Barker, Judy Rosenstreich, and Ann Sarka. So, yeah.
Was the president of Trinity College.
Oh, interesting. Trinity College in
Burlington, which is not around it.
I see. Yes, so I'll leave this over here if you want to leaf through it. So I thought I would take us on a sentimental journey first, so we can all, plunge back into the time. Then I'll show the photographs of the Women's Conference, which is probably why you're here more than anything else. And then I thought, if you like, I would like to talk about what some of the women are doing today. So, because I'm starting on the last few years, and I've had some success in finding quite a few of the women who are still alive who were at that conference. And maybe I'll pass this around just so you can look at one of them. This is this woman here with her husband is the baby who was being held by Gloria Steinem at the White House when that official report was delivered to the president. I went to the White House to photograph it because I was the official photographer for the commission, and Gloria picked up Judy McCarthy's baby and held her, and it's the only picture I've seen of Gloria with the baby. But even more exciting is, of course, the fact that now I know who, I've talked to Judy McCarthy, and I'll show you where that material is. So here I'll just, and she, Baby ERA still uses the name ERA, and she's written a wonderful article about it, which is, I'll show you the link where you can look at that article. But I haven't gotten a JPEG of it yet, or I would have made a handout, but it's not very clear on that sheet. So, so when I had this narrated, it took about 35 minutes to get through it, so with any luck at all, it won't take more than that. So I just call, can you read the captions? I'll narrate a little bit, but there are captions there. I call this self-portrait, which is a bit of a nerve, because this woman is obviously much braver than I am. But I think everyone has a balancing act to do, so we can identify. This is what I looked like in 1967 when I began my photographic journey at Harvard. And you couldn't have a fence without painting it in those days, so we painted it. And I tell people Harvard was my trade school because I sort of quickly dropped out of classes. But I did become a photographer for the Harvard Crimson. And this is my cohort at the Harvard Crimson. You can see there's a substantial majority of men in those days. The man who's at the typewriter, there's a lot of obsolete technologies here. And the man with the pencil over his ear was the man who basically taught me photography. I don't know if you can see the Nixon dartboard and other over the water cooler and the pencil sharpener, all these things that no one uses today. So back to the fence. And this, we had to paint our coats too, at least this student did. The fence was in Harvard Yard. It was right at the entrance from the yard. It's some construction fence. This photograph actually made it into Harvard Magazine. So in 1968. So just to go back in time, people were still reading Lenny Bruce in those days. I kind of identify with that as a little bit before my time, but you can see the mature man reading it. And this photograph to me also represents an era that was, passing with the gentility and the starched shirts and so on. And this is more into the 60s for me, represents. And also a little bit of something in the back of my mind, I think now when I look at it, about the posture of the people whose head is on whose tush. Yeah. So back to the 50s in a way with the folk songs on the banks of the Charles. And then into the 60s with these photographs were taken around 1967 to 69 when I graduated. So, but this to me really represents the 60s. She has a book between her legs. It's The Way It's Supposed to Be. I don't know if anyone's read that book. But.
As far as folk music,
yes.
I only learned years afterwards
Yeah.
that Joan Baez was just starting her career the fall of '63 when I got there.
Oh.
She was at Casa, had a different name then in Harvard Square.
Oh yeah? Did she go to Radcliffe? No.
I don't know what else she
I don't
did,
think
but
so.
She was performing there and
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
Oh. Oh. Well, So sometimes I look back on these and I think, so the flowers and the hair and the am I exaggerating when I think, well, it's really, it was a summer of love. And some, remember those fashions? The campaign of McCarthy, I just tiptoed in a little bit doing some photographs for the Clean for Jean campaign, where people were shaving their beards and, trying to clean up to get Eugene McCarthy elected. And so this is a Students for Democratic Society meeting. So you see the reading list there and everything you need to know so that you can understand politics in 2013. So we got a good education. This is a Student Faculty Advisory Committee discussing investments in South Africa, Harvard's investments in South Africa. So you can see also not a whole lot of women in this crowd. President Pusey is on the left, and in the foreground on the right is Marty Peretz of the New Republic, and Stanley Hoffman next to him, and Erik Erikson, the great philosopher, next to him. And everyone always asks me about the light in this picture, so I'll tell you now what the secret was. Cigarette smoke. So you couldn't get a picture like this today because tons of people were smoking at that meeting. Draft card burning at Northeastern University. Students watching. I love this photo. Moving on after college to New York, where the issues were also the war, for me at least, and these women on Park Avenue, a demonstration against IT&T, and then the McGovern campaign. And through the miracle of the internet, then people are contacting me. For instance, this woman, Sally Popkin's daughter, contacted me and said, "Do you have a picture of my mother?" So it's very exciting to hear of who the people in my photographs are. So I photographed McGovern, and I photographed his wife on the campaign around New York. Or I think it was his wife, because she had a twin and they would often trade off, at least when they were dating. So I don't know. I often wondered, am I photographing Eleanor or her sister? Because they still looked very much alike. About 5 years ago, I went to see George McGovern again at Williamstown. He was speaking at Williams College, and he autographed this photograph for me, which was taken by Stuart Braithman on a trip he took to the Statue of Liberty. And he wrote for Dear Diana, who was there in '72, which was nice. I started photographing the McGovern campaign by just, someone suggested it to me. I would never have thought of this. Someone said, just call the campaign and tell them you want to get on the press bus. And so I did, and they said, do you have an assignment? And I said, no, I'm a freelance photographer. I had been schooled in what to say. I'm a